Hello and welcome to the 21st Century Work-Life podcast, where we talk about leading remote teams, online collaboration, and working in distributed organizations. My name is Pilar Ortiz, and I'm the director of Virtual Not Distant, a company where we help managers of remote teams to get the most out of online collaboration. You can find out everything we do over at virtualnotdistant.com. Hello and welcome to another episode of the 21st Century Work-Life podcast. I'm your host, Pilar Ortiz, and today I am joined by guest Shannon Teague, who is the CEO of Scaling Up Simplified. And Shannon has quite a story as the founder and CEO of a recruitment business. Fully remote team, set up remotely on purpose. You'll have to hear from her why. And well, how her aim was to actually change an industry through her business. So that is wonderful. And now she is helping other CEOs scale up. So by hiring remotely, even hiring globally. So we talk a little bit about that as well. And of course, her words about the importance of culture in the hiring process. I really think, she put it really well, and I really enjoyed talking to her. So, without further ado, here's Shannon Teague from Scaling Up Simplified. Shannon Teague, CEO of Scaling Up Simplified. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Pilar. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and really excited to be on your show. It's a fantastic podcast that I follow, so thank you very much.
Excellent. Well, it's lovely. I love to have listeners on the show. They know what they're getting themselves into. So that's always really good. I think, why don't we start first with your own experience, your experience of leading a remote team, the kind of work you do, why you set it up. Just tell us a little bit of that story.
Yeah, sure. So I started my business in 2014, my first business, which was a remotely run recruitment agency. And I had started the business initially for the purpose of having a remotely run business so that I could travel the world, provide this opportunity for my team in the future. Obviously, at that stage, I didn't have a team yet. And that was the main purpose. I wanted to be able to explore the world, live in different places, live in different cultures, all while having a business that was set up and run in the UK. And back then in 2014, there wasn't all this cool technology that we have available today, to make everything streamline and function really well. It was kind of there was all the information that we have available today. So it was kind of a just do it, figure it out. But I'd never run a business in an office. So I'd set it up that way from the very beginning. So I guess it was easier to navigate that way because I was figuring it out as I was going along. So that was the purpose. And eventually I started hiring a support team that helped me run the business. We were a temping agency to the 5-star hotel sector within the UK. And I had a support team of 10, and we were based all over the world. We were based, I like to hire in countries where it has a close place to my heart, like South Africa or India or Bali or the UK, all the places I've spent quite a lot of time, and provide opportunities for people in those countries. So that was the journey until this point, and I've always just remained remote. I'm a strong believer in running remote and being remote for the flexibility that it provides for both yourself and your team.
Yeah.
So that's my journey to date.
That's amazing. And those places you mentioned, you said you wanted to travel. Are those some of the places that you traveled to during those 8 years, or were there other places? Because I don't like traveling, so I'm really curious as to. So what did that look like physically for you during that time?
Yeah, so in the beginning, it was, even that's when I had a 2-year goal. By the time I got my British passport, I lived in the UK. I lived in London for 6 years. And I had a 2-year goal that I wanted my business to be fully set up within 2 years by the time I got my British passport to be able to travel and start this journey. And I started in Europe first because it was close to home. And if anything, if I needed to hop on a flight, it would be really easy to do that. And then obviously I got the travel bug and I started exploring other places and countries. But at first it was kind of not only figuring out how to manage my business remotely, manage my clients remotely and everything, but also manage myself remotely.
Mm.
It comes with a lot of discipline and lessons. And at first I moved a lot. I moved every 2, 3 days and realized that wasn't practical for running a business at all.
Mm.
Like you can't be a backpacker and run a business. So after some time, I changed my traveling to actually going to co-work spaces around the world. And that is how I navigated traveling. So and when you go to these co-work spaces, you meet other digital nomads and they kind of inform you about other really cool co-work spaces that you can go to and explore. So I would go to these co-work spaces, I would get like an office setting for myself. They would usually have Skype rooms that you can, noise-proof Skype rooms that you can have a business meeting. Um, and I would go live in these countries. Bali's one of them, Thailand. I'm not actually based in Thailand. I really love Thailand. And I would live in these places for 4, 5, 6 months, whatever the case, and really understand how people live there and the cultures and how you barter and negotiate everything and the living costs, and you get a real deep understanding of how everything functions in these countries. So that's kind of like the journey from the start to how things navigated towards like a few years down the line.
Yeah, that's such an important part of what you're saying of traveling as a digital nomad or as someone who likes traveling and takes their work with them, or someone who takes, I don't know, we used to call them workations. Um, it is that you can't work anywhere as an individual, and it sounds like you found what worked for you, and it was maybe, and in the end you needed more of what we would call a traditional work setup, in that the co-working gave you the space, which is so important physically to find. Some people can work anywhere. I can't. For me, this is very important, the four walls as well. And also you tapped into a community, which is so important for some people. It was just a different community that what you might have expected, maybe, or what we might expect, a working community.
Yeah, it's great. You form a global family basically. You don't know when you'll see each other again, but you'll always run into each other at some co-work space somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's great. That was actually one of the rules in my business. I mean, everyone's different. It depends on how you envision your business and the culture that you're looking to establish. But one of the rules was that, you have to go to a co-work space twice a week, because it provided that community feeling. Even though there was a community feeling amongst us in a team,
Mm.
even from a distance, it gave you that sense of, just community around you. And it kind of broke up just working from home, which can get a little bit boring for some people, especially if you like to travel. So it allows you to kind of be a little bit more creative and, have a setting around you that's not just like home all the time.
It's so important. I mean, I'm such a fan of co-working spaces, and I always think that companies, even if they have an office, they might as well just ask their people to work from co-working spaces every now and then, because it gives you access to a different kind of people, and you say for creativity, new ways of thinking, new ways of seeing how things are done. It's so important. Anyway, I could talk
Yeah.
about co-working all day, but let's.
Yeah, same.
Oh, great! Well, that's really interesting. You see, I didn't know that about you, so that's really good. And so you say, did I understand you are in Thailand now?
At the moment, I'm in the UK actually, but my base is in Thailand. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Where are you in the UK? Maybe we're around the corner.
I'm just outside of London.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
excellent.
Our house is actually in Thailand now, but for the first time, I've been based there now for about a year and a half.
Mhm.
For the first time in 8 years, I actually have a home that's not Airbnb.
Right.
Like the last 8 years, I've been living out of Airbnb basically. I'd rent an apartment for whatever 5 months and in different places. But now we actually have a home, and it's a nice feeling after 8 years.
Let's move on in your journey, as it were. Then, so you had it was a temp agency.
Yes, a temping agency, specifically to 5-star spas within 5-star hotels. That was our niche. So I am a spa therapist by trade,
Uh huh.
and then that's how I kind of started the business. I had large network of managers and directors that I knew. And I kind of started the business from that point. So I was my first contractor in my business.
Mhm.
And within 3 years, we had about 80 contractors under our company name. And then COVID happened and decided to go digital after that point because hospitality for 2 years was kind of dead,
Yes.
as we know.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very tricky. So
Yeah.
so so where do we start? Because from one contractor to 80, that's quite some. So how did you find, let's just start there. How did you find your people?
Yeah, so there's various, I mean, because we were quite connected in the industry, and it's quite a small industry. So you have the spa and you have the beauty. They basically like they're the same industry, but they're two different industries. Therapists would talk to each other, and we obviously had various advertising streams. We used social media, we used job boards, we used scouting for therapists. I had a team that like found therapists, and we trade tested them, and we trained them according to the standards of the spas. A lot of it was also word of mouth because it's such a small community of spas and people that they spoke about us a lot. And our whole philosophy was about putting therapists first. Our vision statement was happy therapist, happy spa, happy client. And we did everything that we did was about making sure that the therapists were looked after. Because
Mhm.
if they were looked after, they looked after their clients in our clients' spas, and that meant that our clients were happy. So it was like a happy triangle. And we managed to successfully take through our vision and putting therapists first, we managed to successfully reduce the cancellation rate within the temping industry from a 50-60% cancellation rate to 1% cancellation rate
Wow.
because of how forward thinking we were with like putting therapists first and their needs and understanding, they are the foundation of the industry. Without therapists, without employees, without, and that's standard for every industry. Without employees, we don't have a business. We're a one-man show. And if you
Mhm.
put them first, they'll look after you. They'll look after your clients. They'll look after your business. So this was our foundation, basically. And the word spread, basically.
I just have a technical question. The cancellation rate, do you mean patients canceling appointments?
There was a very high cancellation rate from therapists actually canceling shifts with spas. And
Ah.
there were many reasons for this. One of them being was that temping agencies prior to ours allowed spas to cancel shifts 4 hours before the therapist would start their shift. And we were very strict with our terms and conditions, which was all around looking after the therapist's well-being, their salaries and everything. And we changed that to a 24-hour cancellation.
Mhm.
And because we were really strict on this and we had no flexibility around that, spas started looking after therapists, which meant that therapists started looking after spas. And we managed to reduce that industry cancellation rate, like the temping industry cancellation rate, to a 1% cancellation rate because of how, we looked after our therapist's well being with everything that we did.
So what was it that you were doing at an operational level in your with your team that allowed you to do that? What was your connection with them? Was it always remote? Was it something, did you touch base with all of them at different points? Did you have a structure within the company? How did it work?
Yeah, yeah. So we actually developed our own software, our own internal software. It was basically like an Uber for therapists. So
Mhm.
the entire agency that required man labor to do everything was put onto a software. So our clients could go on and book, because it was 5-star spas, they had to come for a trade test with us. We had to source them first. Then they had to come for a trade test with us. If we felt that they needed some additional training, we would train them internally, would get them prepared based on their personality and also their skill set and their massage techniques, for example. We would send them to the spas that we thought they would fit in well with, and we
Mhm.
would prepare them for that. And then the client would then book them for a trade test themselves. So there was this whole process that was required, and this was all done in the platform.
Hmm.
So therapists were booked in the platform, the timesheets and everything were in the platform. And because we managed to get our cancellation rate to what we did, and we were so well known within the industry, we were able to charge a lot more than what other agencies were. Clients understood that with us, they got value. And we then were able to pay our therapists the highest in the industry. And that was one of my goals at the start of the business. Like I felt that, therapists didn't get paid enough, spa therapists. Um, so we managed to successfully increase that also.
Hmm.
And also just various things, when we met with, we had like Christmas parties, small touches that other agencies didn't do. And obviously, like, our temping agency, like our therapists weren't remote; they were in different locations, but our support team was remote.
Yeah, yeah.
And they had a very personal relationship with all of the therapists. They just felt part of a team at all times, even if we didn't actually virtually meet. I mean, even if we didn't meet in person sometimes.
Hmm.
So yeah, everything was just about the well-being of our team at all times.
And when you said that the therapist would be trained internally, I imagine that was not a remote experience, or was it?
No, we had a team based in London that actually performed that did the trade tests and the training and everything. We had a premises in London where our training team trained them, and then the rest of the team was all virtual and in different parts of the world.
And what were your main, let's go for the challenges, because it's always, what were your main challenges working with your core team, which was remote, and also while you were traveling, from the more logistical aspects like time zone differences, if that was the case, to personally, how did that feel? What were some of the challenges?
So we didn't have a time zone challenge because we catered to the UK market. It was actually a requirement that you needed to be working UK hours, and you had to be comfortable with that. So when we advertised for our jobs in our job descriptions, we specifically mentioned that you need to be comfortable working in these times. And we had different shifts available according to, because spas are open until crazy hours, 12 midnight, 10, and we had different shifts. And this is where it was actually really good to hire in different countries, because we could accommodate more shifts basically, and we could be available for our clients even more in different times.
Yeah.
um the challenges back then, I would say, yeah, I was just trying to understand how to navigate it all, because there wasn't all this advice out there, and it was like
Yes.
trying to find the best software to use that could help me manage my team, and I guess also like understanding how to delegate effectively at that stage, and navigating all of that. Like I think most businesses, even if you're in person, you actually have all of these challenges, how
Yes.
to actually manage your team effectively, how to hire effectively. I think it's one of the biggest problems that companies face when you start expanding and when you
Yes.
start replacing yourself, is how to actually do this properly, even if you are in the same location. So because we were same time zone, we all worked within the UK time zone. It was more of a, navigating a new business, being a new business owner, figuring that all out, even at a distance, if that answers your question.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that actually the fact that it was remote for you was not the biggest hurdle at all. And also because you said, well,
No,
you'd never run a business that wasn't remote before. So there was
yeah.
nothing to compare it. I think that's really interesting. And I think that that isn't the biggest hurdle, is all the other little things. So how did you I've just been recording, I don't know when it will come out, an episode of Management Cafe with my co-host Tim, and we were talking about delegation and
Hmm.
how the problems are different when you are, for example, a middle manager in an organization as opposed to a business owner, because the way you delegate is different. How did you approach that, if you can remember?
Yeah, so um, of course it was all trial and error to see what worked in the
Yes,
beginning.
it's
But
important.
yeah, it is. I mean, even if, we can give tips to each other and we can read everything, but it's also like, as a business owner, we need to also figure out what works and what doesn't. So we extract information from everywhere and implement it and see what works for us and what doesn't, because we all function differently. But basically, it got to a point where I had management under me, and I just worked with the management under me, and they managed the teams under them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is the important part to get to. But how I navigated it and how I do navigate it now even is I use a CRM system. It's very simple, the strategy that I use. And the way that my business is set up now, we don't actually have to be working in the same time zones. You can, it's complete autonomy and flexibility because it's all online based now. But I go into my CRM system, for example, on a Monday. I see what needs to be focused on in relation to like our quarterly goals and
Mm-hmm.
where we are at the moment. And I create top focuses for the week,
Mm-hmm.
and then have a meeting about this and say, can you complete these tasks in this time frame? Does this work for you? Am I, because for example, I'm not a marketer, so I can't, or I'm not a designer, so I can't navigate how long it would take a designer to design something that I need to be designed. So it's always good to write out what needs to be done according to where your business is heading and what you need to focus on to achieve your goals for that quarter. Break it up into weekly, daily, and then just have a meeting with your team. So on a Monday, I would assign all my own tasks, assign all my management's tasks. They would assign the team under them's tasks, and this is
Mm-hmm.
kind of how we do it. And we have a meeting. Can you do this? Are you able to complete it? Have I given a time frame that is achievable? Do you see anything going wrong with this? And we just communicate. They let me know, like maybe move that over to next week because it's a little bit too much work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how we do it. And at the end of the week, we check which tasks were completed, why they weren't completed, and we have a meeting about that, and then move over to the next week and kind of just see, where we maybe went wrong, or how we've prospered, or just always checking in according to top priority tasks that are in our CRM system. So it's a very simple way of managing it, and this is what works for me and my business.
Great. So CRM, just for those people who might not be familiar with the term, is it customer relationship manager? What is it? What's the exact?
I can never remember the full name of it. It's basically like a project management tool.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Just for maybe those people who don't deal with that. So okay, good. So you are now telling us how your current business works, which is great because we're there now. What is scaling up simplified then, and why did you decide to set up this business? And then I'll ask you about how you're using all the experience of your previous business in this one, because that's what it sounds like. It's great.
There's been many lessons learned, as we all do learn lessons from business. It's definitely one of the biggest learning curves is starting and running a business. So we cater, as I mentioned, we cater to the hospitality sector. And I think one of the biggest mistakes I have made, but also it's a mistake, but it's also part of the journey and it was
Uh-huh.
important to happen. I tried to scale too quickly. And the one element of my business wasn't ready yet for me to actually fully move away from it to start focusing on this new department that I opened.
Right.
So we received funding for the business in order to open the new department and hired a team accordingly for it. And we're moving more into like the perm sector of things to find permanent placements for our clients. And that's a completely different sector to what temping is. Like they don't relate. They're very,
Yeah.
very different from each other and how you structure everything. And then COVID happened, and unfortunately, because we received the funding, we weren't able to actually sustain what we received because our business closed for 2 years.
Mm.
So I needed to make the decision of what to do next. And I decided to implement everything that I've learned because hiring is one of the, like I mentioned earlier, hiring is one of the biggest problems that small businesses face. It's also one of the biggest problems as to why small businesses, don't usually meet the 5-year mark or the
Mm-hmm.
1-year mark. And all the problems related to not meeting the 1-year or the 5-year mark could have been avoided if you actually had the right team in place. So I decided to go digital and transform all my knowledge and experience of developing hiring systems and remote hiring systems more specifically into an online program that I now teach business owners, CEOs, how to develop these hiring and retaining systems in their business so that they get hiring right from the start. Because it can be one of the biggest reasons why you close your doors. And it can also be so stressful if you've hired someone and they're eating up your profits and your cash flow because you haven't hired correctly. So I developed that into an online system, which is a step-by-step process on how to hire effectively, what to avoid, what softwares to use. And this is all on a remote and global level, specifically catering to remote and global. And also transformed this into 2 published books, which is the same kind of concept, setting the foundations needed in order to start the scaling up process. And I talk about all the lessons I've learned and everything along the way.
Because actually, in a way, for small businesses, it's become, and I talk from my own experience, suddenly it's great that we can go remote and global, but it's also very daunting because actually, when you think about it, the talent pool widens. But I think then, therefore, the chances of making a mistake or things going wrong also gets bigger for me. I don't know. So it's a very specific thing, and it is very challenging. Yeah, yeah.
I think if you have it's like anything in business. If you have the right foundations in place, going global is the best thing that you can do for your business. There are no more borders. There's no more staff shortages, but it's about understanding how to do it correctly. And if you have a set structure in your business, like, we need a marketing system. Everything that we do in a business needs a system that proves that it works. And the hiring system is exactly the same thing. The hiring process, we need a foundation. It's like a house, basically. That's how I think of it. It's a house. If you build a house, you can't just start building the walls and everything. You need the foundation first. And business is like that in every element, including hiring. But I find that a lot of CEOs don't actually view hiring that way. They don't actually realize that how important it is to have a system that proves results. A lot of the assumption is that you write a job description that's usually really badly written. If I'm to analyze it, I can usually pull a lot of mistakes as to why it's not delivering results. And then you post it on a job board and then you get lots of CVs back and you interview a lot of people. That is a very ineffective way of hiring. So in the hiring process that I teach, we actually only look at the CV before we go into interview the person. So we have all of these steps before to ensure that the people that we are inviting for an interview fit into where our business is heading in the future, the long-term mission. If their personality suits what our business is about and where it's going, because that's more important than what someone writes on their CV.
Yeah. So I'm going to deviate completely from our plan, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Because I think it would be very interesting. You've taken us to a place where I want to ask you more about this hiring
Okay,
process. And I know that when we
please
first
do.
talked, I said we've covered some of that, but not this aspect. So can we go to that bit that you're saying before the CV, or the steps that you're saying, or what are some of the things that we should look at?
Sure, definitely. So it all starts with the job description. Okay, so there's nothing worse, in my opinion, a job description that's written in a way that is all about what skills you're going to bring. That doesn't matter. Like, the person that's applying knows that they have the skills, and that's something that we're going to determine anyways. They shouldn't be applying to the job based on that. They should be applying to the job based on how exciting you have made your business sound. So I think of a job description and also finding teams and recruitment in general as a marketing funnel for candidates. So if we think of it in that way, we wouldn't put a marketing strategy out there, or or an image, or whatever the case, or like a reel, for example, that's boring and that's not going to attract our clients. We have a very specific client that we're trying to attract in a very specific journey, and everything that we do makes sure that that attracts them. And that's how we start to get leads. So
Mhm.
it's the same concept when you're writing a job description. You need to establish what is exciting about your company. And this is where the culture is so important. You need to establish, to me, the culture is the foundation of everything in a business. If we want to scale our business, if we want to expand, if we want to hire teams, you need to really understand and define your culture. And your job description needs to highlight this. And that needs to be what is bringing people in rather than, the skill set. They're reading
Mhm.
this and they're like, oh my God, that sounds so exciting. That
Yeah.
is the kind of company I want to work for. And, we need to think of hiring in the same way as forming new relationships. I'm not going to be friends with a whole group of people that I don't get along with. And
Yeah.
it's the same thing. You spend most of your time in your job, you need to be hiring people that get along with each other. And this is all established through our culture. And then we establish our company benefits from our culture. Because, for example, let's use traveling, for example. So our company culture is all about traveling.
Mhm.
Travel is the heart and soul of our business. I love to travel. I like to hire people that like to travel. I
Yes.
like to meet in various parts of the world with my team. If I go to their country, we'll meet up, have team building activities in the world, wherever. But if you're someone, for example, like, if we can use you as an example,
Yes.
if you if you're someone that doesn't like traveling, my job description is going to be so off-putting to you. It's going to scare you,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that automatically eliminates the people that don't fit into that.
Yeah.
And if you are scared or you don't like the culture that you're in, you're eventually going to leave. And we
Mm.
want to avoid people leaving our company at all costs. There must be a really good reason as to
Yeah.
why they leave. Maybe they want to start a business or whatever the case is. And when we're hiring, we need our hiring system to be around this, finding people that fit in. And then at the end of the job description, we have a call to action. And this is the call to action makes us um, determine whether that person fits into the culture that we're trying to create. So it determines that. And two, the call to action, we only read the CVs of the candidates who have followed the call to action.
Yeah. Hmm.
We don't read CVs of people that have not followed that call to action because, one, they're not interested in actually the company that they're applying for. They're just applying to every single job that
Yeah.
has the same title, and because that's their skill. Two, it shows that there's a lack of attention to detail, and I personally don't want someone that doesn't pay attention to detail in my company. And three, it's eliminating people that aren't going the extra mile for you already.
Yeah.
These people that are coming to you are going the extra mile. They're following your calls to action. They're going the extra step because they're really excited about your company. They really want to get this job. And those are the kind of people that you want in your business. Only then, once we followed this whole process, do we read the CV. So you are, as a CEO, or your hiring manager, whoever is actually responsible for the hiring in your business, you are saving so much time by not getting every single CV that hits your inbox and reading every single CV because people lie on their CV. I'm sorry to break the bad
Sorry to
news, but this
bring
is what
it.
people do. People
Yes.
lie on their CV.
Yeah.
They twist the truth a little bit. They
Yeah.
and if you had to ask someone like step by step what is exactly written on their CV, they probably wouldn't be able to answer it. So
Yeah.
we need to establish a different way of vetting people rather than the old school method of reading a CV.
A benefit of the company cannot be that it's remote. What does remote mean? So, like you said,
Mm,
I like working remotely. I consider myself a remote worker. I will want to work for distributed companies, but not for one where everyone loves traveling and that is part of the culture because
yeah,
I'm just not
yeah,
going to fit in. And there will be ways
hmm
of also maybe how the work is, I don't know how it affects the day to day work, but everything affects everything. So
mm,
it's not enough
exactly.
to be remote. There's lots of different ways of being remote.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So everything in this hiring program that I teach,
Mhm.
is actually like a 17 step. The first part, the hiring part, there's three different main sections of the program. But the hiring parts, there's a 17-step process that I teach to develop your hiring process. And then there's only a few steps after that you follow every single time. And 15 steps of that can actually be delegated and should be delegated. As the CEO of your business, your time should not be spent there. You only get involved at the last step and the first 2 steps, because the first 2 steps are defining your company culture, defining your benefits, defining where you are going as a business. Like, what do you see for yourself? Where do you see your business going? Only you as a business owner can define this for yourself. Your team can't define that. Then you hire people that fit into that. And from that point on, all the steps thereafter can be delegated to your team and can be managed by your hiring manager or your admin team, or, you can get people involved to help you with that whole process.
Yeah, nice. And I wish that many organizations were listening to this, because I know someone who works for an organization who the way they hire is like, no, you're not getting it. From cut and pasting job descriptions, there's nothing about, I mean, what you're saying, nothing culture-wise. It's all about skills and stuff. But anyway, people do things different ways. Variety is the spice of life, right? Shannon, I am just mindful of our calendars, to be honest. So.
Yes.
Now, Scaling Up Simplified, where do people go to sign up for that, or at least to check out what the course is like? Because it sounds fabulous.
So thank you. We actually give a free version of the course called The Basics of Remote Hiring. They can just go to our website, basically, scalingupsimplified.com. And on the top of the website, there's a join our free course. And that's basically just the starting steps of how to remote hire, all the basics that are needed, the guidelines and everything. And from that point, they can sign up to our main course. And our main course is, like I mentioned, there's three sections. The first is developing the hiring system. The second is how to actually keep people in your business, because hiring doesn't stop at just hiring. We need to then set the foundations needed that our team want to stay in our business. That they know how to do their job properly. They know how to perform within their job properly, because usually when our team leaves within their probation period, or they don't meet their probation period, if companies even have that in their business, is due to the company not having the right structure in place to make sure that this person knows how to perform well within their job. And then there's the growing globally parts, like how to grow globally, how to hire globally, how to be tax efficient, and all of that. So they can start with the basics of remote hiring, and then move on from that point, or even just book a free consultation hiring strategy with us, and we can see where they are in their business at the moment and see whether this program would be beneficial for them where they are right now.
Wonderful. And of course, you've also got a YouTube channel, which you can link from the website, everything, which is great. Really, really short videos, not like long form podcasts like this one, and really nice. Yeah, very good.
Thank you.
Good. Well, Shannon, if is there anything else you want to say to our listeners before we wrap up? What's the best place to connect with you personally, your website, and any other words?
Just go to our website, scalingupsimplified.com. All the contact information's there. And I hope to chat with people. My goal is to make the global workforce a better place through teaching CEOs how to systemize, basically.
That's a great goal. I sign up to that. Well, Shannon Teague, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was really nice to be here. Thank you.
A big thank you to Ross Winter for polishing the audio of this episode. And thank you, listeners, for choosing to listen to the 21st Century Work-Life podcast. Remember to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app, and you can check out the full show notes over at virtualnotdistant.com/podcasts. Talking of podcasts, we have another show you can listen to, Management Cafe, which you should also be able to find on all podcast apps. I have been Pilar Ortiz. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, enjoy.